Why chasing transactional sales is a limited strategy.
Brand is, as Jeff Bezos says, what people say about your company when you leave the room.
Right.
And so it's not what you say, it's what people say. So at a fundamental level, you have to really think about, what does your company stand for? What does it do? Not the pretty pictures, but how do you relate to people?
Welcome everybody to this video series. I'm Anita Narayan. I'm going to be your host here in conversation with Martin Ricketts of Digital Samurai. Martin is the Chief Technology Architect, my resident technologist, I would say. Martin, welcome.
Hey, Anita, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm great.
Well, Martin, I'm looking forward to this conversation with you. We have some amazing conversations, put the world to rights, but here, just for the benefit of anybody listening for the first time. So I just want to give people a quick overview of where we're going in conversation, and then we can get into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the overall landscape, how business has changed today as a result of that, what the bad and maybe the good news is in that, in terms of how we should be relating. And then we're going to look at the whole concept of content. And we're going to move on from there to look at curated solutions and what that is. And we're also going to be looking at cognitive augmentation and predictive modeling, that whole thing of artificial intelligence, before rounding off and coming to look at the new retailing and what that means. And I forgot to add, we're also going to talk about Gen Z, which sounds like the name of a pop group, but it isn't. So we mustn't miss them out. So that's the kind of aerial view. And so, Martin, I wonder if we could kick off just by opening this conversation up to look at, what does that landscape look like and what that means for business in terms of how we should be relating in business?
Well, I've been in business for 35 years. I've been a serial entrepreneur, and it was a lot simpler before in a lot of ways, but technologically it was much more difficult. The bad news is the world has changed. So what worked before might not work this time. And there's a lot of competition. In fact, the world is now your competition. But the good news is the world has changed. So technology is being democratized. With a YouTube channel, anyone in the world can start a business and start promoting a product or a service. So that's a good thing. But because everyone is your competition, it's much harder to stick out. In the world of infinite supply, brand is one of the key ways that you can differentiate yourself. So you have to build your brand. And so that takes some thinking about and some doing as to how you're going to do that, how you're going to attract and maintain clients.
Yeah, so you mentioned an important word there, brand. Is this the strategy that people should be adopting now going into the future? And what does brand actually mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Brand is, as Jeff Bezos says, what people say about your company when you leave the room.
Right.
And so it's not what you say, it's what people say. So and what that really means is that at a fundamental level, you have to really think about, what does your company stand for? What does it do? Not the pretty pictures, but how do you relate to people? Amazon talks about being customer obsessed. So everything they do is around customer. Digital Samurai is client obsessed and client experience obsessed more specifically. And so you have to kind of understand what your brand means at a most fundamental level. It's certainly more than just the pretty pictures.
And brand is, from what I'm hearing and what you're saying, brand is very much not just you and your product, but how you're relating to people in the process. Would you agree with that?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the process over time is how you build that. It's a process over time. And everything in business these days is that. In fact, because technology is essentially free and democratized, it's about iterating your process, making better your message and your offer, and increasingly servicing your clients. And so it's a process that takes time, and it takes your attention, and specifically, how do you want to be perceived in the world and how do you get there? So you need a strategy to do that.
Yeah, and that's very important, because with everything that's happened, particularly in the last 2 years, certainly one of the things I've observed is that, sometimes you hear the phrase desperate times calls for desperate measures. And what we see people doing is getting more transactional, not relational.
Yeah.
And so your message about brand is even more important now, because that transactional stuff, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, it works. It just doesn't work as well, and it's extremely inefficient. But most people start a business, that's what they do. They make it transactional. And that is, I'm going to get leads, And you can get leads in all kinds of ways: traditional media, TV, radio, print, banner ads. These days, it's more about social media and social storytelling. But however you generate those leads, that's a fairly low bar. You get someone to put in their email address. Now you have to do all the work to vet that lead and close them as a client. And everybody knows most of the leads don't close. In real estate, it can be up to 90% of the leads don't close. And that's the case in lots of fields. Even if you get half of them, that still means that you're spending half your time on something that is a waste of time. And so transactional based sales is extremely inefficient. And worse, it makes you chained to your desk because you can't leave because you're the one that's doing all the leads and bringing the leads and that kind of stuff. And if you're a bit bigger, if you've got a sales team, you still have to manage that team. So it's extremely inefficient and takes a lot of work, but that's what people generally do at the beginning, transactional sales. There's a better way.
You have been listening to the Modern Samurai interviews with Martin Ricketts, the Digital Samurai. Hosted by Anita Narayan. On the next episode, we'll discuss the critical importance of content-based marketing.
Don't settle. Do work you love. Design your future.